Lovely.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, that's just so pretty. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I am with the beautiful Robert Kyle today.
Pleased to be with you, the beautiful Cathy Segal-Garcia.
And I see we both got the memo about the color.
That's right. Blue. It's Blue Friday.
Blue Friday. Yeah, man. So it's really so nice to have you on the show and to have the opportunity to have a long conversation with you, as opposed to, "Hi, Robert."
Right. Right. That's how so many conversations are. Well, were. Yeah, it's nice. I catch your conversations from time to time that you've been doing, and I've enjoyed seeing you have extended conversations with some of my friends and people I admire. And it's just a great thing you're doing for the community. Thank you
Oh,
for that.
thank you. It's really fun. Sometimes I think, if I didn't do this 6 days a week, I would have a lot more time to do stuff I really want to do. But I really like doing this, so it's not that terrible. You know what I mean?
Well, it's awesome, and it's really, I mean, it's really interesting too because you're interested in the person and what they're doing, and you guys share information, and it's nice to have the time to go deeper. I mean, I think that's one of the hidden beauties of this time we're in now is we just have this gift of time to go deeper in so many ways that we often don't have.
I agree. I was just talking with a friend of mine about really the how deep it is. It's pretty damn deep. I mean, we're making history right now.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
I mean, we always are, but can you imagine looking back at this time period and all the history that will be written about it and talked about? And it's uh,
sure,
it's
yeah,
such a shift in awareness. I mean, even if you just took the fact of what you just said, the time that everybody has to all of a sudden look a little deeper and have deeper conversations, just that actually shifts the whole human consciousness, and it's so beyond that as well.
yeah, and I mean, it's also. Can you imagine having this time without being able to have video chats or social media or see how your friends and family and loved ones all over the planet are doing? I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine if this would have happened, 20 or 30 years ago. It would be really, really, I mean, it's difficult for a lot of folks right now, but I can't imagine how difficult it would be being disconnected. At least we're able to connect in this way, which, while not as good as in person, is still super valuable.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, yeah. Well, I have been an admirer of yours for a long time. Your writing and your choice of music that you play and your sound and you as a
Thank you,
person.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Well, and likewise, I've been an admirer of your musicality and your bringing together of the community, and also just your gumption, for lack of a better word, that you are the first person to volunteer to do something, to make something happen, to start a jam session, to start an online hang, to, you know, I remember at the Bobby McFerrin solo concert, who in the audience wants to come and sing? First hand up. And I so wish I would have videotaped that. That was such a beautiful moment. But you've always been that way. As long as I've known you, you know, and we don't know each other well. I mean, this is the longest conversation we will have to this point, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have more in the future. But I've always admired, you know, your singing, your musicality, and that you go for it. You get an idea, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do that, and you do it. I mean, that's there's a lot to be said for that, and I
Thank,
admire it, appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Um, our buddy Gary Meek is saying hello.
Hi, Gary. I'm a big Gary Meek fan.
Yeah, there's a lot to be a fan of with Gary, isn't there?
Oh, there certainly is. Yeah,
He said you and he shared the same teacher.
that is true. We both studied with the amazing, inimitable Phil Sobel, who
Oh,
was the guru to many woodwind and also brass players around. He had such a unique way of approaching music and sound and playing an instrument. So we both spent a lot of time with him, and changed our world for sure.
wasn't I thought he was on the East Coast.
Well, he's from the East Coast.
Yeah.
He's from New York, and he came out west to work in the studios. Did a lot of studio work. Was the lead alto player for the NBC, you know, TV orchestras when they had them, and played
Yeah.
on so many of those old shows, Laugh-In and Andy Williams, and I can't even remember the list right now, but
Yeah.
and then he was a teacher at Dick Grove for a lot of years, Dick Grove Music, which I believe I watched Gary's thing too. And Gary mentioned that that's where they met, which I didn't realize. Um, so yeah, that's we share that in common, and I'm a big Gary Meek fan. Amazing player. Um, I I first met Gary back. There used to be a thing called the LA Jazz Workshop with Bill Yeager. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
This is the early to mid 80s. Some amazing players, and Bill had, I think, 4 or 5 big bands. Um, and he brought all those great charts from North Texas State University. And it was a great place to be able to play and learn and get challenged and be surrounded by just kick-ass musicians. And that's where I first became aware of Gary and met Gary. And I
Cool.
heard him through the years with his groups and with Airto and Flora several times, and
Yeah.
Dave Weckel's band several times. So I always loved his playing.
Where
Still,
did you go? You still do.
yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I'm a Valley dude. Grew up in Van Nuys,
Really? How
California.
unusual.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's not often for those of you who don't, especially don't live in LA. You know, you talk to a lot of people, you know, hardly anyone is from the San Fernando Valley. My husband is also from the San Fernando Valley.
Oh, okay. And you're from Boston, is it?
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
from Boston. So, so what part of the valley did you grow up in?
Van Nuys,
Oh,
very close to LA Valley College and Grant High School.
yeah.
Yeah, I spent the whole first part of my life there.
Did you learn did you pick up woodwinds early?
No, actually, I was a drummer. I was
Oh,
a drummer for most of my early life. I had some piano lessons, which I never really connected with. And then I fell in love with playing the drums, and really got serious about that around the age of 14,
uh-huh.
and was playing in a lot of bands. Of course, this was not jazz music that I was into at the time. I was very much into progressive rock and roll of the time, Led Zeppelin and Cream and Jimi Hendrix and Kansas and Genesis, those kinds of bands.
Yeah.
Uh, and I had my first road gigs when I was actually 17 years old, and went out on the road playing in country bands as a drummer.
Oh,
Uh, This was back in the days of, do you remember Urban Cowboy and John Travolta? So
Sure.
country music had this huge resurgence at that time. And I played with this, he was a star from Canada named Jimmy Arthur Orge. So I went on the road with him and my two other buddies who we had kind of a power rock trio. Long story short, we spent some time on the road and then I came back and that gig ended and I thought, well, I was living on my own because I had got thrown out of my house by my parents at age 16, I think.
Wow.
And I came back and I sort of mended fences with my parents. And they said, well, you can live with us. I said, I'm really serious about wanting to be a musician. They said, well, you can move back home, but you have to go to school for music and study it seriously. You can't just, be sitting in your room practicing all day. So they made that agreement with me, and I went to LA Valley College. That was my first musical training, other than some private drum lessons when I was growing up. And I was majoring in music as a drummer, as a jazz drummer. And that's where I started to discover jazz. And actually, that's when I picked up the saxophone not long after that, just thinking I would pick it up and be able to play a tune or two if I practiced in 10 years. And needless to say, I fell in love with the instrument, and the drums quickly became my second instrument. And I found and was inspired by a great teacher named Bill Green, who's a real guru of woodwind players for a lot of years. A lot of people studied with him that are the players in town. So I spent a lot of years with Bill Green, and that's how I started to get into the saxophone. But by this time, I was 20 years old when I was either 19 or 20. No, it must have been 20 when I picked up the sax. So I didn't have that childhood
Yeah.
jump start that so many people had. But I did have the understanding of rhythm from coming from a drum
Yeah.
background.
Yeah.
And I always think that, learning a second instrument is so much easier than your first instrument
Hmm.
because you already know a fair amount about music if you pick up one instrument. You know how to listen, you may or may not know how to read, you may or may not know how to improvise and play well with others. But you apply all of those skills and that knowledge to the next instrument. Whereas your first instrument, you're learning the instrument as well as all of that.
Yeah.
So I quickly became obsessed with the saxophone, and I was just going to school and practicing and sleeping occasionally. And that was my life for a lot of years as I was in school, living with my folks. So
Sleep,
that's my saxophone
sleeping
beginning.
occasionally. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then, so you started, what happened? How did you start getting involved in the jazz scene?
Well, I got involved in the jazz scene. I guess it was all through, in the beginning, the people that I would meet and play with at Valley College where I was going. I played in the big bands there. I got to know the other musicians. We'd have jam sessions. One of my dear friends to this day that I've made music with since then is Hussein Jifri, who's just a phenomenal human and bass player and composer. And,
Yeah.
uh, we've recorded so many projects and did so many gigs together, but it was an outgrowth of that. And the more people you met, we used to have jam sessions at the Union. You'd show up at the Union, you'd bring your real book, you'd learn tunes, you'd play tunes, you'd record yourself, you get upset, you go home and you practice harder and learn about those tunes. So that's how I started to connect with folks, and just meeting the people at school. I think the connections that we make when we're going to school are as, if not more important than what we're learning at school. It's because you're there with your peers and you're all sort of at the same level. And these are the people that you grow with and that go on to do, things in the music world. How
Yeah.
about you? You went to Berkeley, right?
Yeah, I grew up in a musical house. My mother had been a singer. My dad was a sax player.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he taught as well, and he he taught in the next room, privately. He taught in the next room to my bedroom, so I'd hear him always screaming about, no, goddamn it, it's an A, stuff like that. So Yeah, and then I had twin sisters who were 4 years older than me, and they had beautiful voices, and one played the piano. So the three of us grew up singing together, and
Oh, beautiful.
yeah, and I played guitar first, and then I played flute, and I went to Berkeley for flute actually.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and in fact, the last 3 months I've taken out my flute and started getting a good tone again, and I, you know, just yeah, it's really nice to connect with that. I mean, I never quite lost my feeling of everything, but I didn't play a lot over the years.
Yeah.
So, but during this period, I realized a good embouchure, which was joyful for me. It was, I relaxed. Just one day I was playing, and then my muscles relaxed, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow, there's a really nice tone. So
Interesting. It's interesting what the body remembers, isn't it?
yeah,
Something, if you spent that much time doing something, I don't care how many years later it is, it's back there somewhere. Um,
yeah,
and your fingers can find it. And plus, coming from a vocal background, you know so much, not only about music, but about tone and about breathing and breath support and all of those things that are so important for playing an
yeah.
instrument.
Well, to tell you the truth, I really didn't know about breath support until a few years ago. Because most of the teaching that I got, which was in LA actually, most of the vocal teaching, um, was given to me by a teacher named Helen McComas, who Kevin Littau and me and Sonny Wilkinson found her after we had gone to Robert Edwards. And we were all having a little difficulty, a similar difficulty, and Robert had been directing us in an unusual way that we were not satisfied with. So Kevin found Helen McComas, who actually ended up giving a lot of her teaching information to MI.
Huh. Okay.
And she had a lot of students, and she was a teacher that you could go and watch her teach somebody. So, which was extremely valuable, right, for as a student and a teacher. But she taught about the vocal cords. She really specific. I mean, she probably taught breathing to some people, but to me, she didn't really talk about breathing. Maybe because I didn't have a big problem with it. But
Mm-hmm.
years later, in more recent years, I have this chronic cough, and it was affecting my breathing and my singing, and pretty much bumming me out personally in my own universe about it. And when I found my new teacher, Stephen Kronauer, he started talking about breathing, and I mean, I knew I hadn't gotten information about breathing, but anyway, now I get it, of course. And yeah, it's really interesting the things you learn along the way and the things you don't learn along the ways, and you
Yeah.
still can actually operate.
And the value of a great teacher is so beneficial. I remember one of my early lessons with Bill Green. I had been studying something, trying to figure out some problem on the saxophone. I can't even remember what it was, but I showed up to my lesson and I said, Bill, I'm having this issue with blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, just do this. And I did that, whatever that was. And suddenly everything worked and all the lights turned on. And he said, you like that? And I said, that's amazing. And Bill said, that took me 50 years to figure out. But I mean, I think, a good example of what you can get from a great teacher. They've been working on these issues and problems and the ways of how to improve what you do for their entire lives. And then they just give it to you. Here.
Yeah, yeah.
Bill Sobel was like that. He was really, we refer to him as the Yoda of saxophone teachers. He would give you stuff that that a lot of his students are still thinking about and pondering to this day and trying to do. I mean, we're getting better by the trying, but if you ask any of his students, I'm sure they would all say we still don't feel like we have it. But by the trying, we're making incremental improvement.
Well, sometimes it's just being aware of it, right? That
Yeah,
changes your your whole perspective and abilities just
yeah,
by being aware of it, that
for sure. It
you
starts
know.
like that. And a lot of his thing is you can't make the saxophone play, you can allow it to play. And basically you have to get out of your own way and stop trying to do it and just allow it to happen. Which is, a big topic, and it's can be much more complicated than it seems on the surface. But uh, whenever we get together, and there's a lot of us that stay in touch and talk about his ideas, all this stuff comes up, and we just laugh because, we're all trying to do it, and it's a lifelong process.
Yeah, that particular subject is definitely a deep subject. I mean, it kind of goes on and on and on depending on who you are and how you think and what you need to learn about it. And I mean, it's definitely a philosophical conversation,
Yeah,
But what the beauty of it is that it manifests in a physical product.
yeah,
And yeah, I always tell my students, okay, I'm teaching you technique and I'm teaching you information, but half of it is philosophy. So
yeah.
that's what you're going to get. So, I hope you can deal. I hope you can deal with that.
Think about it, work it out on your own.
Yeah, yeah. So you at one point you fell in love with Brazilian music.
Yeah, I sure
What
did.
what point was that?
Well, like a lot of people that discover Brazilian music and fall in love with it, the doorway for me was Stan Getz,
Uh-huh.
the Getz Joe Beam stuff, because I'm a fan of Stan Getz and his saxophone playing. And so hearing that music, which is so gorgeous and timeless, it got me interested into, well, who is Joao Gilberto and what are they doing on their own? And then who is, Ahi Barroso and what other songs has he written? And, you just start branching off from there and discover that whole rich, incredible world of Brazilian music. I mean, to me, Brazilian music has everything I love in music. There are certain other kinds of music that have most of the elements, um, but they might be missing one or the other. Brazilian music has the gorgeous melodies. It has the rich harmony influenced by jazz. It has, I mean, most people know just bossa nova and samba if you ask them about Brazilian music, but there are hundreds of styles of Brazilian music that are equally and sometimes even more intoxicating. And and if you dig beneath the surface, you start to discover, Brazil's a huge country. It's way bigger than the United States, and and uh, and the influences run deep from just the Indian culture there, but all the different European cultures, all the slave cultures that were brought there. It's this gorgeous amalgamation of all these influences. So it has the rhythmic interest, which is so deep, along with the melodic and the harmonic. And if you couple that with stuff being sung in Portuguese, it's just the most gorgeous language in the world to me. I mean, what's not to love? That's why that's why so many people love it, and that's what made me fall in love with it. And the deeper I got, the more I realized samba bossa nova is the tip of the iceberg. Although quite gorgeous tip that it is, it's just the tip. So that was the path that led me, and then I connected with um, the first local musician, Brazilian musician that I connected with was Clever George. I'm sure you know Clever.
Yeah.
Uh, Brilliant composer, guitarist, singer, and he was doing a lot of his own music at the time. This is the early 1990s, and he had come out to hear Betty Bryant, who I was working with at the time, and we got to talking on the break. He said, "Oh, I'm a musician too, and I play, obviously Brazilian music." And we made some kind of date to get together and hang out and play some music, and started doing gigs together. After that, I started playing with his group, he started playing with my group, and through him I met a lot of the other Brazilian musicians in town. And then it kind of flourished from there and continued to meet and play with Brazilian musicians. But that was, geez, almost 30 years ago. So yeah, I've been a big fan and student since then.
That kind of reminded me of a story that I went for a bite a number of years ago, but I went for a bite with Stefan Oberhoff, and he was telling me how he met you.
Yeah, on MySpace. Yeah, he reached out. He and I used to both go to this one little coffee sandwich joint. You know the story, but maybe if there's anybody listening,
Yeah.
they might want to. We used to, independent of each other, go to this one place called the Coffee Barrel. It was in Pasadena, and the owners were really sweet. And they would always, we would talk music with them, Tony and Nancy, and Tony was a drummer, so he was very interested in music. So they both knew that I was a musician, that Stefan was a musician. They were trying to connect us for a long time. And suddenly, I think Stefan reached out, if I'm not mistaken, and he sent me some kind of message on MySpace. And, we got to talking, and he said, well, why don't we meet at the Coffee Barrel and have lunch? So we did. And he said, bring a horn or two and we can go play a little bit afterwards. So we did. After we got acquainted at lunch, we went back to his studio. He just lived down the block.
Yeah.
And we sat down and we just started playing, which is unusual. I think generally when I meet another musician, we say, well, why don't we try to find some common ground? Why don't we play Autumn Leaves or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just sat down and we started just kind of freely improvising. And there was such a musical connection with the way we heard things and the way that we reacted and responded to each other that we really formed a close musical relationship. And we started doing that regularly. We would call them sound baths, where we'd just get together and we would just play. And oftentimes they became seeds of songs. We wrote quite a lot of songs together. He recorded everything because he's like studio, King Kong of the studio. He has every piece of gear and he knows how to use it inside out. And he's all about documenting and creating and building and producing. And he's so great at that. But yeah, that's how we formed our relationship. And he was a big fan of Brazilian music, as I was, so we had that common ground. And I started telling him at some point, you need to check out this place called California Brazil Camp, which I think you and I have spoke with a little bit in the past.
Right. Every year I go, I'm going.
It starts with the intent. And this is the first year, sadly, they're not doing it,
Yeah.
because of circumstances. But I've been going for 15 years and Stefan is just a couple years behind me because I finally got him to come up. He just thought, it sounds interesting, but you don't really get it until you show up there in this magical ancient redwood forest, and you're surrounded by 150, 200 other Brazilian music nuts, not to mention, these are singers, dancers, musicians, not to mention some of the greatest musicians in the world. I mean, truly, that I've encountered, both the famous and the infamous. I mean, the year that Stefan came, he was only coerced to come because Ivan Lins was going to be there. And, it doesn't get much higher in the world of Brazilian music. Ivan Lins has been there, Airto, Dori Caymmi, Joyce Moreno, Monica Salmaso, I mean, on and on. These are the teachers, Chico Pinheira, Alessandro Penezzi, Ricardo Silveira, and, I'll stop now. But it's a remarkable place because we're all starting with the intent of we love Brazilian music. We want to learn more about Brazilian music. We want to share Brazilian music. So that brought me to a whole other level of appreciation and knowledge and interacting with the community there. I mean, I made so many friends all around the world that are Brazilian music lovers and come to that camp, if not every year, every few years. And it's just this kind of underground in a lot of places culture. There's guys there that lead baterias. This is the big drum groups in China, you know. There are choro groups from England that come there and play this specific style of Brazilian music called choro. And there's all these, you know, all these sort of subgroups that come as a unit. The whole group goes to Brazil camp, and they take that knowledge back to wherever they are, and they practice it and they spread it around their community. And it's a beautiful thing, a really beautiful thing. I encourage everybody who has the faintest interest in Brazilian music to check it out.
I
And you
think
can be a beginner, you can know nothing, or you can be a professional. There's a place for you.
that was what I was just going to say. I think I've been intimidated because I really don't know the language. I really don't know all the songs,
Oh,
you know.
Cathy, you would thrive there. But I mean, you're a great singer. You know so much about music, and you've got ears. You know, you are way, way, way ahead of the game. And there are people, like I said, there are a lot of professionals that come that don't know anything about Brazilian music, and then there are some professionals, myself, that know something about it. And then there are people that know absolutely nothing. They don't even know how to play an instrument. They
Huh.
show up to listen because the music is that good. I mean,
Wow.
if I had to list my top 10 moments in my life of hearing music that inspired me and moved me, I would say maybe 7 of the 10 happened at Brazil camp.
Wow.
I mean, the level is so high. And plus, you're in this magical environment surrounded by people that love this as much or more than you do. So the energy, the musical energy mojo level is super high.
Wow.
You would thrive there. You would thrive. You just have to do it once and then you'll be hooked. And as a
Okay.
connector kind of person as you are, you would connect with all the people there. And I'm sure they would be guests on your talks and be coming doing workshops that you're in, doing like you do so well and so often. So when it
Okay.
happens again, you got to come, Cathy.
All
You
right.
love
Okay, maybe I can get my friend Kanga Liverato to come. I think that would be a really cool hang.
it. Who's your friend?
Her name's Kanga Liverato. She's in Santa Barbara, and
Okay.
she's half Portuguese, and she's a singer, and she's. I think she would probably like go to the moon there. You know, she'd probably have a great time.
Oh my God. Last year we had Monica Salmaso. I don't know if you're familiar
I
with her.
am familiar with her. She's
She's
amazing.
been doing these like daily uh, videos with one
Mhm.
other or occasionally two other musicians from her home. And just to sit in her class and hear her voice. And I mean, it's not only the education, but you're getting these people's stories. You're
Yeah.
getting what inspired them. I mean, one of my favorite teachers there is actually my favorite Brazilian composer, a guy named Ginga, who a lot of people haven't heard of. He writes the most gorgeous,
Gorgeous.
sophisticated compositions. And to hear his story, his class is not like a class, by the way. It's not like you show up with your music paper and your
Yeah.
staff paper. It's completely in the moment. You show up one day and he's going to play his songs for you, singing them under a redwood tree. And that's actually where I fell in love with Ginga and his music. You show up another day and he's going to talk about how much he loves his mother, and his mother taught him to love opera, and he'll be playing and singing operatic arias for you. You show up another day and he's talking about how much he loves Ravel because of the way he voices chords, and how he sat down and tried to figure out this voicing in Ravel's orchestration on the guitar. I mean, just getting inside these people's psyche and seeing what inspires them and makes them tick.
Yeah.
But the 2 years ago, we had Joyce Moreno. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, talk about a singer, songwriter, guitarist, phenomenal human being. We would sit in her class. She would pass out the chart for her song
Yeah.
with the lyrics in Portuguese, sometimes in English. She'd play the song, she'd sing the song, she'd tell you the story behind the song and or the lyric, and then she would invite anybody who wanted to sing the song with her or play the song with her. And I mean, this is a world-class musician, composer, singer, songwriter, and there you get to interact with them. Well, you know, you do this all the time with your master's class. I assume it's a similar kind of thing, although I have not attended. what do you do in your master classes? Is it any formulaic thing, or is it just as it happens?
It's as it happens, but most of the time, the teachers have kind of a similar thing. They have a like a kind of an MO. They know what they wanted. They might want to stress phrasing or that kind of thing. They get up the student and have the student perform, and then they critique, and then they have them do it again. So it kind of follows along with that. But I've seen stuff that like what you're talking about as well, and which is amazing. I mean, let's see, where was that? I guess that was a jazz camp.
Oh yeah, a lot of the same people
Yeah.
both teach and attend that camp. That
Right.
camp
Who's
we're talking
that? I haven't thought of him in a while. He's a great either guitar or bassist. He lives in San Francisco or up in that area, or maybe Seattle, actually. I think he lives in Seattle.
Jovino,
Yeah,
Jovino Sebastiano.
Trevino. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, phenomenal musician. You should have
yeah,
him as a guest.
yeah. I
Um,
really should.
he teaches at Corniche, but he was the musical director for Hermeto Pasquale for a lot of years.
Who actually? I was in a camp with Hermeto.
Really? When
Yeah.
and where was that?
Okay, so this was, oh my gosh, had to be at least, let's see, I don't think, sometimes I go by my marriages. Let's see, was it might have been 20 years ago. We were in Argentina, and I had this vocal group at the time called Alone Together. And at that time, um, the vocal group was invited, and the personnel kind of switched around sometimes. This was Allison Wedding, Michelle Weir, Julie Kelly, and myself. So
Nice.
we were invited, and the camp was on this island that you could only get to at a certain time of year, because otherwise um, the road there was flooded. Anyway, Hermeto was there, and then I'd have to go look, but I bet that the other people because one man was very famous Brazilian singer composer, and all of the students knew his material. They all sang when he was playing.
Oh wow. Okay.
I know people tend to do that for the Brazilians too. They know the material and then they all sing. I've been at big concerts like that.
Yeah, I have, some live a lot of live recordings and or videos where the artist is singing a song and the entire crowd is singing Chega de Saudade or something,
Yeah, yeah.
a difficult song, but the whole crowd is singing it.
And all ages.
Yeah, that's right. It's just part of their singing and dancing is a huge part of their culture. They don't differentiate, between playing an instrument and singing and dancing as we do in this country. I would say in the Latin American countries, particularly Brazil, because I know a little bit about Brazil, or Africa or Cuba, everybody sings, everybody dances. I don't know if everybody plays in Cuba, but in Brazil, they got to, you could hand the average guy on the street, some small percussion instrument and they'd know what to do with it because it's a huge part of their culture, the samba schools and, carnival and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. So they all know how to dance samba. Um, but yeah, it's very much a part of their daily life, singing and
Well,
dancing.
this was like a first for me, especially to be so involved, because we were all together for 7 days.
Yeah.
And um, this guy I'm talking about, whose name I'll have to go find his name.
Okay.
Every time we didn't speak the same language,
Yeah, I was going to ask. So
No,
how did you do that?
yeah, but every time I looked at him, every time I saw a tree growing out of the earth. It was really interesting. And then the other guy who was there was Pedro Aznar.
Hmm. I
Do you
know the
remember
name, but
him?
tell
He's
me.
the singer who sang with Pat Metheny on those
Oh,
records way back.
yeah, I love that stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so he was there, and
Uh-huh.
also Hermeto. And Hermeto was like, I mean, that was
He's
really
he's from another planet. I did a
good.
workshop with him in Brazil, and yeah, it was my one encounter with him. But go share your story. I want to hear
You're
more.
right. He is from another planet, and a gorgeous planet. You know, playing everything. He could play this. You know, it was like,
Yeah, yeah,
and he had, there was a concert of his, but there were workshops, and then of course we all ate together. And the one workshop I remember, I came in because I had been teaching, and the whole all everybody in there was electrified, and he he was up on the stage composing some song on the blackboard, and he wanted everybody to perform it no matter what you played. And there was this old woman who I guess was with her daughter or her grandchild or whatever, and she was up at the front of the stage like this. She was literally like, you know, shaking, and her daughter was trying to get her to sit down, and she wouldn't sit down. It was a really amazing experience.
yeah. We had a similar experience down in Brazil. We were out on the back deck of what they call a posada, which is sort of a B and B in this town called Ubatuba, which is
Uh-huh.
a beach town famous for their 100 beautiful beaches. And we're all the musicians are on the back deck working on some songs or some concert. Jovino was there, by the way, Jovino Santos Neto. It was very helpful because Hermeto doesn't speak English. So Jovino, who speaks great English and was Hermeto's MD for so many years, he knows Hermeto. He knows how to communicate the ideas. So we're out there working on some music for hours. Hermeto is on this big white wall that somebody had drawn staffs on, composing a piece of music, you know, in his out of his head while all this other music is going on. And then at the end, he invited all the musicians to come in and play it. And Hermeto, if you know anything about his music, he doesn't just write a melody and chord. He writes the exact voicing of the chord. You know, precisely what he wants. I mean, you literally need like I forget what they call it, but the keys to unlock a Hermeto chart, because if you look at it, it looks like Greek. You know, he's got all the notes and the chords, but then he's got all these numbers which really mean the way he wants the chord voiced. It's super specific. Anyways, at the end, we come in and we play this gorgeous piece of music that he had written on this huge wall. And I mean, he's just a musical wizard. Everything to him is music. Any sound he hears, it's music. The first thing he did when we met him, there was a group of, I don't know, maybe a dozen of us, is we were all there with our instruments. It could be saxophone or guitar or mandolin or clarinet. He would walk up to each person and he'd take your instrument in some unusual way. Maybe he'd take the neck off the saxophone and blow into it like a trumpet from the other end and start making music out of it. I mean, his whole way of operating was, let me find something different to do with that piece of material than you're already doing with it, and find interesting sounds. And he did that. And it was really fascinating. Have you ever seen the video of him? I think they're all in a water and they're singing like half submersed. So they all got this stuff. Are they blowing in straws? I can't even remember. It's been so long since I saw it. But they're making this video about blowing bubbles underwater as music. And it's hilarious, but it's also fascinating.
Oh my God.
He posted one recently of himself in the dentist chair singing some kind of tune and composing with the dentist drill in his mouth. I mean, this guy is he's way out there, but a really sweetheart of a man and
Yeah.
just a musical wizard, really, really from another planet.
Let's actually take a quick look at something.
Oh, good.
Because
Yeah,
I'm sure, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who actually haven't really seen Ernesto, wouldn't you say?
I would say, yeah. I mean, he's a little under the radar of most musicians know who he is.
Yeah.
And certainly Brazilians know who he is. One thing a lot of people don't know, there's a Hermeto tune on just about every Sergio Mendes record.
Oh,
as there is a Ginga tune. And
Oh,
these are the sort of treasured. Oh, that's the one, I think.
is it right
And
here?
I think so. Click on that one. I think that's Covino, right?
Oh. Oh.
O ritmo casou. O ritmo casou.
Oh man. Wow.
Oh, that was fun. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Yeah.
Everything is music to him.
Wow. I wonder if that was really like little butterflies.
Yeah, it sure looked like it.
Yeah.
You've been to Brazil. There are some extraordinary butterflies down there, and lots.
Yeah.
This place we were, they had those big. They're called Morphus anaxibias. Those big. You've seen them before. They're blue, like the color of your top, but iridescent, and they're huge. I remember we were sitting back there doing the workshop, and I saw one fly by, and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" To see one of those in the wild, and then of course you start to see them all the time, but magical.
Yeah, that camp that I went to, Julie Kelly and I, on the way home, we went to Agua, what is that called?
Oh, what, the Seven Waterfalls?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't been there. I can't remember the name of it, but I know what you're talking. It's on the border with Argentina, I think.
Yes, it's on the border of Peru and Argentina and somewhere.
Yeah.
And it happened to be the time when the butterflies were there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, between the falls which you took a boat, and you kind of were part of the falls, and then the butterflies. It was like, wow, man, I was really happy to stop there. It was an incredible experience.
So what was the camp specifically? Was it just a music in general, or for singers, or for Brazilian music, or
Well, these,
Argentinian music, or?
yeah, these very talented and community-minded people, a small group of them, in this area. Can I remember the area? I can't remember right now. Um, they created this camp every year it was a music camp, and it invited various professionals to play.
Mhm.
And I actually met the guys that I played with there and performed with there um, they were the accompanists of, gosh, my names are not coming today,
I know.
of Astor Piazzolla.
Oh, cool.
That's where I got turned on to Astor Piazzolla. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess they did it every summer. And as I said before, it had to be when it was during the summer when the road appeared. And
Yeah.
it was a truly great experience. When I left, I don't think I did it 2 years. I think I only did it 1 year. But when I left, and this was just after a week, I literally was weeping as I was getting on the plane.
Oh, I get it. Yeah, I get it. It takes you into such a different world that that you just don't want to leave that magic, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember the very first year that I went to Brazil camp was the year that Katrina hit. So it was very powerful. We were all up there and really didn't know what was happening until some point after, because one of the instructors there, Curtis Pierre, lived in New Orleans and has a samba school there, and he had been in touch with his family. So it was a powerful week, not only because of that, because it's also my first experience at Brazil camp. And Jovino was there. So many great, Hamilton de Holanda, the amazing Brazilian mandolinist, was there, and so many people. But at the end of camp, there was this very wise older woman, and we were at the final performance. She was the mother of the yoga teacher there, and I remember making a comment. After we had heard some of the final performances and seen some of the final dance performances as well as music, and I said, "This is so magical. It's going to be really difficult to go back to the real world." And she just looked at me and she said, "This is real too." And I thought, yeah, it is real. And we got to try to bring as much of that magic we can to all parts of our lives when possible.
Yeah. And we do that, but the everyday existence sometimes is the thing that distracts us. But
That's for sure.
yeah,
That's for sure. Julie's been to camp. She's probably mentioned it a few times, I believe. Julie Kelly. She's
yeah,
a big Brazilian music aficionado.
she's very much, yeah, she lived in Brazil for a while.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep. When she was a little younger.
very
Um,
cool.
yeah. Um, well, can we hear some of your music? You have the best taste in music. I'm going to share my screen again.
I think I resent you the email with those
Oh,
original choices. Uh,
okay, good.
so that might be easier to locate.
Yeah, let me do. Getting. Come on, email. Come on, email. Um,
Jim Igo.
is this it? No, is it?
Yeah, there
Okay.
it is.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Any particular?
Yeah, I would say you could start with the Love and Hope. That was a project that I submitted for Tony Guerrero. I saw when you had him as a guest a while back.
Yeah.
Tony, like you, is a guy that is constantly creating new opportunities and making things happen. And at the beginning of the whole lockdown, he kept me busy single-handedly for a few of his projects. We did a big band project, which I think you played the day that you had him on your show.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we're all learning how to do this self-videoing. Of course, self-recording, I've been doing that for a long time here in my home studio. But he said, let's do a quarantine project. And the only qualification is it should be a song that you wrote and recorded while in lockdown. So I had written this song not too long after that, and all the musicians, we recorded our parts remotely from our home studios. And then we used Elise, my partner, her photographs. She loves to take pictures. I think she takes beautiful pictures. So we used her photographs, and my other friend, Martin Cohen, who I like to refer to as Don Eduardo Martino. He's an amazing photographer and astrophotographer. But he put together this video for us. So this is love and hope, two things that we need lots of these days.
Cool. Thank you. Let's see. Make it bigger. Start at the beginning. Nice, beautiful.
Thank you. Was it distorted on your end or is it okay?
No, it was not distorted. How about
Oh,
you?
okay, good.
Did you hear it distorted?
I did, but maybe I have my speakers up too loud. And once I turned it down, it was okay.
Okay, yeah. I pick when I share the screen, I pick the computer computer sound.
Okay.
Sounded really quite nice over here.
Oh, good.
Yeah. By the way, Cecily Gardner's here and she said hello.
Hi, Cecily. What a wonderful human and vocalist. You guys
Human.
have that group together, right? Fish to Birds, which I've been wanting to see forever.
Yep, fish to birds. I should put out a few posts, just of what we've done in the past because it's a fun group and I think it feels good, especially right now.
Why don't you play one now?
Oh, all right. Let's see. Let me see. Thanks, Robert.
I want to see what you guys are doing too.
Okay, let's see. I have, let's see, I think it's under movies. I do a lot of organizing, but sometimes I forget where I put things.
You're so organized, you can't find where it's supposed to be. I totally feel you.
We have I mean we have a lot of so a lot of times we take moments of oh, here's one with Stefan. We take moments of let's see, what do I want to say? Rehearse we kind of get together and rehearse. Let's see,
Mhm.
what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the NPR. Oh, see, so I put that NPR one somewhere else. So I'll do the one at the Blue Whale with Stefan. Oh, this is
Cool.
Bar Fedora.
I miss the bar fedora.
I know, me too. Let's see. But it would be fun to have Stefan in there. Oh, I think he was singing. Wait a minute, let me see. Sorry, everybody. Let's see. Fish to Birds, NPR. Let's see if I can find it like that. Can I? No. Okay, so where else would let's see, music business, Fish to Birds. I try and put everything on movies and that kind of stuff on a secondary drive.
It's truly amazing the amount of material that we have to keep organized. I mean, that's almost a full-time job, just keeping track of your music and your photos and your videos and your emails and your documents and your charts. And it's a lot of organizational skills.
It really is. It's a huge amount. I'm going to see one more thing. The Red Cat, we did a really nice here we go. Red Cat movie. There we are. This is
Oh,
at
great.
this is at the Red Cat Theater let's see, a year or two ago, and so we performed for like 300 people in there, and we were part of a project that they do annually that shows new groups.
Oh,
And there were about 5 different groups, and we did, one set, and then we all did another set. So this is me on the left, and Emil Hassan Dyer, and Ashley Marr, and Adrian Duncan, Mon David, Cecily Gardner, and Tracy Robertson.
yeah, I know a few of those people. Wonderful.
Here we go.
I got the sun in the morning and the chocolate at night.
The diva!
Weedy, but weedy, weedy. Every life gonna have a little trouble. Everybody gonna have a little pain. When you feel that trouble, all you got to do, all you got to do is get up, get up, gotta get up, get on up, up, up. Every life gonna have a little trouble. Get up, everybody, gonna feel some pain. Every time you feel that trouble, what you gotta do? Get on up, get on up, get on swing, 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 wiggle, wiggle, swing and wiggle, swing it on,
I love fried chicken.
That's great. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, not to turn the tables, but how much of that is improvised and how much of that is worked out?
Yeah, all improvised.
All improvised.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's even more impressive. The listening and the interaction and the mutual music making.
yeah.
Beautiful.
And like other groups, I mean, we've been together for 7 years, so there's things that we recognize. Oh, someone's moving forward, or we have these little jokes, musical jokes that like paka 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 is usually calls Mon into action, Mon David, because
Ah,
there's something in his language that he does paka paka paka. So
okay.
things like that. But and we have things that have worked together.
Yeah.
Um, going into like perhaps bringing up motifs or bringing up something. We constantly look for challenge ourselves. You know.
Yeah.
So, but and then each one of us has a very unique, you know, personality that comes forth, you know. You didn't
Yeah.
really see Adrian go into motion, but Adrian does some rapping. She's really good at rapping. And Emile is very uh, rhythmic and kind of African based, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know several of those singers. I know, of course, you and David. Am I saying it
yeah.
right?
Yes,
He's
David.
wonderful as well. And Ashley, she does some great videos. Elise is good friends with her and seen some of her videos of her African dance stuff and African songs. Really great stuff.
Yeah,
But the other singers I was not familiar with, oh, Cecily, of course, she sounds great.
yeah.
But those other, you've had some interchanging members though, probably. I know
Well,
Katina does
yeah,
it sometimes, right?
not that many. In the beginning, Tracy, who's the youngest, the guy with the dreads,
Yeah.
he hasn't been in it. I think he's been in it 2 years, I want to say, because we started inviting various people, and he just was a really good fit in the group. And but we had Diana, can't remember her last name. Diana, I'm sorry.
It's
We had
okay.
Diana in it, and she was wonderful. She was just extremely rhythmic and active, and that was a different group for a while, and then she dropped out, and we were without her for a while, and then we got Tracy. So it really hasn't been all that many people. I think we might have gotten Adrian. Was Adrian part of it? Adrian, yeah, yeah, Adrian was part of it from the well, maybe not from the very beginning. I can't quite remember. Why we got together was we all were doing a workshop or two with Rhiannon when she was here.
All right.
And then we loved what was happening, and we thought, well, we should just keep going, And then we
That's
did.
really
And then,
cool. I mean,
yeah,
I've played in situations where there's group improvisation going on, and it can work to some degrees, but I find it's often more fun for the people doing it than the people listening to it. But in this case, I thought it was equally fun and fun to watch and listen to. So
yeah.
that's tough to do. I get
But it
that.
is, you do have to be brave, and you do have to recognize what's not working,
Right. Right.
because like you
That's
said,
a big, yeah, that's a big thing, big part of it. And also have your ears open to what's happening and how the tides are shifting. Yeah. Very
yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you. It's
Yeah.
really a fun group.
I hope to get to hear you live when there's live music again.
Me too, man. And it's hard for us because we can't do it. You
Yeah.
know, we can do kind of rubato stuff possibly on Zoom, but oh, thank you, Diana Wallace. Gosh, I can't believe I forgot her name. Thanks, Cecily.
Thanks, Cecily.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And also Dan Davila posted the Fish to Birds tiny desk submission. Thank you. That was a pretty nice one. But we didn't have Tracy at the time, but that
Oh,
was a nice one. But back to Robert Kyle.
well, that was a welcome diversion. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Are you a teacher as well?
I am a teacher as well. Yes. I have a fair amount of online students and up until recently, some in-person students as well. But all that's converted to online, which has been interesting.
Yeah, I know, it's funny, but I have about four in-person students now. They
You
come,
do?
we do it in my backyard, but
Oh, cool.
I don't know, it's kind of prone to the weather. The
Right.
morning isn't that bad usually, even if it's hot, but like today, for instance, very hot.
Yeah.
And yeah, so but then I have some online people too.
Do you
So
like teaching?
do I like teaching?
Yeah, I would imagine that you do, from as much as I've seen you do workshops, and that you do a lot of that kind of thing. And you're a
I
good
I love teaching.
communicator of information.
I love teaching
Yeah.
and um yeah, I find it fascinating to because it's very empathic, right? And I find it fascinating to for each person to show up and for me to get what they're needing and what they're going through and giving them the space to show me, in whatever way, you know.
Right.
I really love that about teaching.
Yeah, I do too. I find in the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, I've become better at it by having less of an agenda for uh, for what I want them to learn and what I think they need to learn, and doing like you're saying, seeing where they're at on that day and what they need, and also trying to constantly be encouraging with what they've accomplished and keep them moving forward. So it's
Yeah,
that's
it's a really interesting balance, isn't it?
it really is. It
Because
really
you
is.
have to acknowledge them
Yeah,
and and then give them something challenging and new, which applies to them. So, yeah, it's a really interesting balance of, you know, like good job and come this way.
right, exactly. I find a lot of it is just teaching them how to listen and what to listen for. I mean, that's what we're all trying to become, right? Better listeners, and and of course, give them the technical things you need to do to make this or that happen. But just saying, were you listening to your tone on that note? I know it's the right note, but were you listening to your tone? And lots of things that, you know, if you don't concentrate on them, they could slip away really quickly.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And obviously we're basically in the same business, right? Because it's basically woodwind, you know, which
Mhm.
I found so fascinating, with the Hermeto video. You
Yeah,
know, I was thinking, that's so interesting. He wanted people to immerse their bodies in water so that the instrument actually was different,
yeah.
right?
He's always looking for the different sound, and yet every sound that he heard was music to him. He didn't differentiate sounds of nature, sounds of city, sounds of cars, or whatever. It's all music to him. It's just how you frame it and how you hear it, and you can make music out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fascinating video. That was fun to watch. Thanks for watching that.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he is an albino too,
That's
which
right.
makes makes it even more like unique. It's like, wow, whoa, he's doing all these things, and then his eyes, and he's really a special
He is a
individual.
special soul. Actually, can I share a brief story about him via? Do you know Bill Brendel?
Yes.
Bill Brendel, fantastic musician, composer, piano player. He was Sergio Mendes' MD and producer or co-producer on several of his CDs back in the 90s. And part of his mission was to go down and visit Hermeto and get a new song for this next Sergio Mendes album. And he told me the story of going to see Hermeto one time, and Hermeto asked Bill, he said, "Would you like to hear the music of the future?" And of course, Of course, Bill wants to hear the music of the future. Who doesn't? Um, and so Hermeto puts on a tape recording of the Pope, whoever the Pope was at that time, speaking, giving a speech. And then he lets it play for a while, and then he starts playing exactly what the Pope is saying, the same cadence, the same notes. And then he starts harmonizing the Pope's speech with all this, Hermeto, crazy, beautiful harmony. And this is long before, I mean, you see that kind of stuff on YouTube now with people taking Trump's speech or, somebody on the news, evening news that had an interesting way of speaking and playing it on their instrument or harmonizing or putting music with it. But this is way before any of that. And Bill just was like, this guy is out of his mind in such a beautiful way. Such a beautiful way. That's my Hermeto story via Bill Brendel.
Who is let's see, who over your life or maybe in your younger life, who was one of your, well, you already said who your teacher inspirations were. What about player inspirations? Who, like, what record did you play so much that you had to replace it?
Oh gosh, the first record that I wore out, first few records were Lucky Thompson. It was just called Lucky Thompson. It was recorded in Paris in 1956, I think. Lucky, like so many of the jazz musicians after World War II, found it to be a more comfortable living, especially for the Black musicians in Europe, playing jazz. And at the time, there weren't very few musicians in Europe that could play jazz well. So the Europeans, recognizing that, were very kind and inviting to a lot of American jazz musicians. So Lucky Thompson was actually the first guy that I heard that made me want to play the saxophone. He has such a gorgeous sound on the tenor sax. And when I heard actually this record at a party at somebody's house, that's when I decided I'm going to learn to play the sax. So that record, which I found, I think it's just called Legacy or Lucky Thompson's 1956. He's playing the Great American Songbook stuff, I Cover the Waterfront, My Funny Valentine, Tenderly, Indian Summer, those kinds of tunes. And just with the most beautiful sound, the most beautiful phrasing, the hippest kind of rhythmic approach. I wore that record out to death. That was my first jazz one. And of course, the Getz Jobim stuff as I discovered that. So a record I really listened to recently that I really wore out was Dori Caymmi, Brazilian Serenata. Do you know that record?
No.
Oh, that's one you should listen to.
Oh, write that down.
Brazilian Serenata. For those that don't know, Dori Caymmi is the son of the legendary Dorival Caymmi, who wrote so much great Brazilian music that has become the standards of Brazilian music. Dora, many other. But Dory lived in LA here for many years and was on Quincy Jones' label, Quest Records. So he made several records while living here. I used to go hear his band at Le Cafe and what was the name of that place on Ventura near Whitsett?
Oh, that was Joey Heredia used to play there a lot.
Right.
I want to say Lay something.
Anyways, you know the place I'm talking
I
about.
do know the place.
I can't think of the name either. But anyways, that record I wore out. Dory has got this voice. It's really like a cello. It's this low, beautiful, rich, soft, lush voice. And that record, I encourage anyone who has not heard Brazilian Serenata to find it and listen to it. And a lot of the LA musicians are on it. Mike Shapiro, the great Mike Shapiro, is playing drums. I think Kevin Littau is singing on a bunch of it, as she did on Sergio Mendes stuff, another great singer.
Yeah.
And but even more than all of the performances, well, along with all the performances, the writing and the arranging are just exquisite, really
Yeah.
exquisite. Um, so that's when I wore out a lot. You know, I would say pre-jazz, I was really wearing out Steely Dan's Asia. You know, I think at the beginning of this lockdown, I did one of those 10 album challenges that we've all done multiple times, where you put the photo of the album, but you don't write anything about it. And I decided at that point, since I had the time, I was actually going to talk about the 10 albums that were foundational to my musical taste. Steely Dan's Asia was one of them, Joni Mitchell Blue, Ricky Lee Jones' first and second albums, which I'm a huge fan of to this day. The saxophone players, yeah, Dexter Gordon. I really got into Dexter Gordon for a while. And the early sax guys, Lester Young and Ben Webster, who I discovered actually by listening to the old Billie Holiday records that she did with Teddy Wilson or Count Basie in the late 30s. And of course, Billie sounds so sweet and innocent and just had this sweetness about her voice. It just floated. But then Lester Young would come in with these solos, and I'm like, who is that guy? And then, you know, the Stan Getz really picked up on the Lester Young thing. It's almost impossible to tell late Lester from really early Stan. I mean, Stan knew every note he played, and really his own style emerged from that. But those were some of my early guys. I was really into Zoot Sims. I still love Zoot Sims.
I
Paul
love
Desmond.
Zoot Sims.
Oh God, yeah.
Zoot Sims. One record I was listening to Zoot Sims, he never used, in his solos, he never used motifs, or
Yeah.
what do you say
He
them?
was constantly creating, right?
Yeah, and I'm really into motifs, and
Yeah.
so I was listening and I was like, wait a minute, he's not using any motifs. And I was fascinated with that. That's kind of like, I was also fascinated. I was in Japan and I went to a Keith Jarrett concert, and his solos, from the beginning to the end of the solos, were at this moment anyway. I don't know if he did that all the time, but he had all motifs. So he'd do one motif 3 times, and then that motif he would take from and create another motif
Mm.
3 times or whatever. Take
Yeah.
take that and the whole solo.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's some artistry and
Yeah.
ability, is like, whoa. But then Zoot Sims, no motifs. That's so unusual.
Just such a gorgeous player. And I remember reading Paul Desmond's, was it autobiography or biography, I think. But his quote was, listening to Zoot Sims play is like getting your back scratched. It just feels so good. You know? And I think that was a really apt description of Zoot's playing. I got to hear him one time. One time at, I don't know if you were here, there used to be a club called Hop Sings
Yeah,
in Marina Del Rey.
yeah.
And he played with Shelly Manne, Lou Levy, and Monty Budwig. That
Oh
was,
yeah,
yeah,
the
the working
guys.
guys of the time.
Yeah.
And Zoot came out, he was dressed in a suit, and he was playing a tenor sax that looked like it had been recovered from the Titanic. It was like green and brown with age and, history, and made the most sweet, beautiful sound out of it. Yeah.
He came to Dante's when I was a waitress there and
Oh,
played.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, quite moving. Those listening to that, especially that era, of
Yeah.
people live was really it was a spiritual happening.
Yeah. He and that was the era too when you could differentiate one player from the other in about 2 bars or less.
Don
Because
Menza.
yeah, they all had their own
Yeah.
sounds, their own styles. I was really too early in my playing life. I really got into Pete Chrisley.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Pete's just such a monstrous musician. He used to play at a place. I was living in Pasadena at the time. And he used to live at work at a place called Dino's, and
Yeah,
it was he was doing the Tonight Show all week long.
yeah.
So Friday and Saturday night he would play, and there was no cover charge. And I'm sure the guys, they probably made $30 each, but they didn't care. They were happy to play with Mike Melvoin, Jim Hugart, and at the beginning it was Nick Ceroli was on drums, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
was replaced by John, what's his name? He played on everything. in the world.
Karen or something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
John Garrett. So I used to go hear them jam almost every weekend, and I was just fascinated. I'm still a huge fan of his. He's just he's such a fun and creative and swinging player, and he just always sounds like he's having a ball. He's always having
Yeah.
a ball.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. He used to come to Dante's too at that time, and so did Joe Roccasano. Do you remember
Yeah,
him?
yeah.
He lived in the house above Pete's garage, you
Oh,
know, apartment.
okay.
Yeah. And I was hanging out with Joe, a little bit at that time. And yeah, that was those guys.
Pete's
Oh,
crazy.
man,
Pete's
they were
funny.
all crazy. And Nick Ceroli was around at that time too.
Yeah,
Oh,
I remember Nick. I remember one time I had been going to see Pete for months. I kind of I got my courage up and I talked to him after. I said, Pete, I'm just, as you know, I'm a huge fan of your playing. Would it be at all possible to take some lessons with you? And Pete, he has that funny, you don't expect this high voice to come out of this
right.
huge human. And his answer stuck in my mind as, oh man, you don't want to study with me. Just go home and listen to some Wagner, man. It's all right there. Listen to some Wagner.
That sounded just like Pete, man. That
But
was
that,
just like him.
he probably was not wrong in his answer, but at the time, of course, I had no idea what he was talking about. He was a funny guy. He used to tell some funny stories on his on the gig. Yvette Stewart was singing with him too.
Yeah,
Uh,
Jim's wife.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Sweet people.
Yeah, great, great. She's a great singer. Jim, of course, one of the best bass players ever. Yeah, so beautiful. Oh, you mentioned Ricky Lee too. Um, I heard a lot of Ricky Lee stories from John Leftwich because he was her musical director a lot. Um,
Right.
but did you hear the Billy Childs tribute to Laura Nyro?
Yeah, I own the record, have played it many times, and also saw the
Yeah.
live concert at Disney Hall. But yeah, she sings a tune on that.
Could you believe that when you first heard that? I was so blown away. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, just absolutely incredible to hear her start singing on that song. Wow.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan to this day. In fact, I named my dog Ricky Lee because that her first record brought me so much joy in my life. To this day, I love that record. And I thought, who do I want to name my dog that's going to bring me joy every time I say the name? So my dog is named Ricky Lee after her. She's been doing live streaming from her living room. I don't know if you've caught any of those.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
Yeah. And they're
Oh,
completely wacky and disorganized. She'll start to play a song and then she'll say, oh, I didn't practice that one this week. Maybe next week. And then she'll go on. I mean, it's like you're in her living room and you're just hanging out and she didn't prepare. There's no song list. Thankfully she has some people helping her with the technical part. So it looks and
yeah,
sounds pretty good. But you just get a real sense of her
yeah,
personality as well as her musicality. And it's just interesting to hear how her voice has changed over the years, and like every voice changes over the years, and it loses some things but it gains some things.
yeah. John said it was always a lesson in freedom, freedom and creativity. You know,
Yeah,
when he
I,
would,
I get that to hear
yeah,
her talk.
yeah,
She was really about letting people you know bring their thing to it.
Yeah. Yeah, but boy, when she started, been on a train. Oh God. If you guys haven't heard that, you have to go check it out.
Yeah, she
She
got
just,
some of that Tom Waits thing happening.
oh yeah, definitely Tom Waits.
I'm a
Yeah,
big Tom Waits fan as well.
me too, man. Oh my God.
I guess I grew up, my first records that I loved and were not jazz records. They were kind of the pop of the era, Joni Mitchell and James Taylor and Cat Stevens and Carole King and the Beatles, of course. So I came up with more a pop sensibility that found jazz later on.
Yeah. I was kind of a mix. I had jazz in the beginning because my dad was a sax player. So, Ella Fitzgerald and all that kind of stuff was playing at my house. And then, but then as I was growing up, well, first of all, there was my sister's music, right? And that was like the Beatles and all those pop hits that came out in the 60s, And then the 70s, forget about it. And I was at Berkeley in the 70s, and the music in Boston and the music in general that was happening was so rich. I
I
mean, it
bet.
really blows my mind.
How was your time at Berkeley? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did. I was a little, I think, too young to get a tremendous amount out of it because I was not quite 21 even.
Oh, wow.
And but I'll tell you two things that I really got out of it were the joy of writing music and arranging,
Mhm.
the joy of that and that feeling. Oh, I just love, I still, it just gives me chills to think about how it feels to do it by hand and to sit down and think about it. And a community, because before that, the community pretty much had been either my father's community or high school community. But then it was like it was my choices, right? I
Yeah,
was in college, and the music influences were all over. There was ECM and Weather Report, and then but
yeah,
then there was Miles, and then the Jazz Workshop and Paul's Mall were there, and so I saw a lot of great people playing there. And then there was Motown and Woodstock and
yeah.
the blues, and it was really a rich period of time, you
Sure
know.
was. Did they have a vocal program at that time? They
No.
didn't. So you were doing just as an instrumentalist or as a composer, arranger, or something?
Well, yeah, composition and arranging was my major, and as a flute player.
Oh, right. That's
Um,
right. You did say that.
yeah, but then the year I left, they they got vocal. But I mean, I was always a singer, But yeah, yeah, but yeah, it was good, and it was still relatively small too. You know.
Right. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people that had great experiences there and some that were glad they went, but discovered it wasn't for them for one reason or the other. But I can only imagine how rich and the teachers you had and the fellow students at that time must have been pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I was talking to Joe LaBarbera and Jack Mouse, right? Both Jack Mouse, you may not know of. He's in Chicago. He's a drummer, and he was very involved. John Laporta was like, you know, super mentor to him, and John Laporta really was one of the guys who got in there and wrote the programs for Berkeley. In fact, um, how I learned eighth notes or swing eighth notes was by the term John Laporta swing notes, swing eighth notes or something. Do, ba, do, da, do. I mean, those were called John Laporta
Wow.
eighth
Okay.
notes.
It's notes named after him to his
Yeah.
legacy.
Um, so what are you concentrating on doing these days?
Uh, well, I've been trying to catch up a lot of projects that had been on the back burner. I'm still doing teaching online. I'm doing online sessions. I'm set up to record here if people need horns on their projects. So I've been doing a fair amount of that since the lockdown. I've been writing a lot of music which has been really fun to have the time to do that. And I'm starting to record more of it here. It's kind of interesting and nice. I mean, there's nothing beats being in the same room, but it's nice that people have their own home studios and you can send them a track and say, add bass, add drums, whatever. And people can do that now. And it's a way to collaborate. You know, much like our meeting here, it's not as good as face to face, but there's certainly a lot of great that can still happen. You know, you don't think about what's not possible. You think about, well, what is possible? We're able to have a face to face communication, hear and see each other. That's pretty cool. Don't have to wear pants. So I've been working
True
on that.
confessions of a sax player.
Yeah, I won't stand up till the camera's off. But been working on some music. I've been working on a saxophone quartet. There's 4 players that I've been playing with. We all studied with Phil Sobel for the last, well, we've been playing together for the last 25 years probably. And it was a weekly thing, which we haven't been doing since March. 4 other students of Phil Sobel. So we're all working on the same concept of musicality. So I've been working on a quartet for them. I've been working on arranging a Vaughan Williams string quartet, also for the second quartet, which is gorgeous, but really difficult. I never arranged a string quartet for a sax quartet. A lot of the other guys in the quartet have, and they actually can work out really well. So I've been working on those projects. What's that?
Vaughan Williams. I'm trying to think of. I had a Vaughan Williams song in my repertoire. I'm trying to remember.
Really?
Wonder if it was "Touch Her Soft Lips and Part."
Yeah, I don't even know if I know his songs as much as his orchestral stuff.
Oh, okay. And yeah, there was a singer years ago named my name's brain cells are not happening today.
I feel you.
Anyway, she wrote L.M. Pagano. It just takes a minute, I guess.
Okay.
L.M. Pagano, who actually became a house decorator, but interior decorator, but she wrote these really beautiful lyrics to that song.
Okay.
It's really just a, ba da 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 da.
Tell me the name of it again.
Touch Her Soft Lips and Part. Really beautiful, just simple, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, very inspirational.
There was a Vaughan Williams CD that I wore out, and it had a piece of his called "Serenade to Music." Have you ever heard that?
No.
Oh my God, that's one to listen to. It's just so beautiful. He wrote a lot of really lovely music.
Did you say Serenade to Heart?
Serenade to Music.
Oh, Serenade to Music. Okay. Yeah. All right. I have to write out all these things down because otherwise.
Yeah, one of the other beauties of being in lockdown is having more time to, check out music or videos or live performances online that I don't normally have the time to check out a lot of them. I've been watching so many friends' performances or new music that they're sharing, or going back and listening to old interviews. It's really one of the hidden treasures of having this much time.
It's great. I get a little not frantic, but I feel like there's so much that I want to listen to.
I get it.
Oh, William Walton. Is that right? No, I thought it was Vaughan Williams. It must be another song, actually, that I'm thinking of Vaughan Williams, because Karen McCants said, yeah, it's William Walton's Touch Her Soft Lips and Part. It's really quite a beautiful song.
I will look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though, having enough time.
Yeah, because there's so much to listen to, actually, there's so many different things that are intriguing. And I mean, well, I also do this 6 days a week. So, and it is part of the day.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome that you do that.
I figure I'll just do it until I don't. And maybe
Sounds
I'll
like
slow
a plan.
down at some point, or I don't know, I'm not sure.
That's a
I want
good.
to go hear something else, but let's
Sure.
see. Um, let's see. Um, let's see. I know you gave me things, but oh, there's you and Hussein doing Bluesette 4 years ago.
Okay.
It was off Felicidade. One time I asked you about the songs that you do
Yeah.
because you seem to pick some. I don't know the names of Brazilian songs, but every time I hear one that
Yeah.
I know it. And I think that you play a lot of those songs that I really love. Um, and I don't know, there's one from 2015 at, it says Chucho at Jazz Vespers.
Oh yeah. Good job about that. Maybe there's one. Speaking of Brazilian songs, there's a couple that Elise and I recorded. After the lockdown, we were doing posting some videos of us just playing. There's a couple that we did by Jobim, which are lesser known. One is called Ligia, and one is called Estrada Branca. Maybe one of those would be nice to play because they're beautiful songs that are a little less known than the standard 15 or 20 that most people know.
Okay, cool. I'm going to do that. Oops, first I have to share the screen. Here we go.
Hey, everybody.
Hey. Is this the name of Estrada? What did you say?
Estrada
No,
You know that tune?
yes, I do. Well, what should I call this? Happy Madness, right?
Right, that's the English title. Yeah, a few people have sung it in English. Stacey Kent and I think maybe Karen Allison and
Hmm. Yeah.
maybe Carol Wilson.
Actually, Sinatra.
Oh, right. Oh, him.
That hack.
Yeah.
Um, I noticed a few, I think it was different notes or different chords than I was used to hearing,
Hmm.
which, I mean, sometimes, you know, well, not only might you guys play or whomever you're listening to might play different notes, but also like the song I'm learning now, especially on flute, because it's so nice, is Louisa. And
Oh, yeah, great tune.
it's just like Brazilian songs sometimes surprise you, and they've been changed, by the American singer, singing, you know, a note like a half a step away because, it sounds right, and it's really not that note, I realized that may just be that I'm not used to hearing the right notes of the song.
Yeah, I'd have to refer back to check exactly what is the original version because I'm sometimes I'm not even sure. Sometimes stuff just evolves to
Yeah.
the point where when I go back and hear the original, I'm like, oh, that's how it's supposed to go. You just start doing it and hearing it your own way over the years, and it progresses and progresses, and you can drift. I've certainly had that happen.
I've done that a lot with standards, and I I hate when somebody comes up to me, some older fan, and go, that's not the way that the melody goes. It's like, oh
Uh,
well.
it's your own gig.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Robert, thank you. It's been 2 hours. It
Oh my
doesn't
God.
doesn't really feel like it, does it?
It zips by, and honestly, I didn't know that I'd have anything interesting enough to fill up 2 hours with, being kind of an introvert as I am. But you're such a great conversationalist and able to help draw it out. So thank you
Thanks.
for having me as a guest and for sharing this time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not the first time I've heard somebody say that they think of themselves as an introvert, which is um, it's surprising to me. And because we'll use you for example, because you don't seem like an introvert when you're on stage or in public. You're very open, friendly, giving. You know, um, without getting too deep into your psychology, what makes you say that you're an introvert? I'm just curious about that because I have heard that several times. Janice Siegel said she was an introvert. I was like,
Um, I
wow.
guess I'm most comfortable. Not that I don't enjoy interaction with other humans and of course with Elise and other musicians, but I'm most comfortable often by myself and just doing things by myself and thinking uh, and I would say I really have to work at not just staying in my little bubble, and it certainly wouldn't serve me to be an introvert staying home and just practicing and writing all day. Although it might be great for my music, it would be tough uh, to uh, have a career like that. So I always find it a little bit of work to interact with the world, and not that I dislike it, but it's not in my nature to do it. It's work.
Yeah.
Whereas I would think a person like you're just so comfortable being around people, talking to people, having conversations, getting them to open up or whatever, that it's just that's your nature and that it comes naturally to you. At least that's how it appears on this end.
Yeah. But you've played, and we didn't even touch on this, but you've played with some big stars on the road and behind them. And does that does that come into that kind of operating, or I mean, does the introvert part get in your way with that?
I don't think it gets in my way. I think it's I'm comfortable being a sideman. That I find is super easy, and fun because I don't have to have all the headaches of being a leader, of worrying about, you know, when the band is getting fed and how we're going to get from this point in Paris to that point in Switzerland. I don't have to think about any of that. Just
Right.
show up and play my horn. So that's really easy. And I've been lucky to work with some great people who are, extroverts, and also some bigger name people that are introverts too. I think there are certain people that are introverted because that's part of feeds their artistry, but they also are able to put on that face and present what they do out to the public. Like I think Ricky Lee Jones comes across to me as very introverted, and I really connect to her music, but she's able to put it out there in a way that you're like looking into her soul a little bit, and she's at least able to function on that level. So she's introverted, but she's letting you peer into her bubble. Um, so I think people handle it in different kinds of ways. I think a lot of musicians are more introverted than we realize, but the nature is you kind of have to hustle and be out there to keep your career going. So we do what we have to do, but I think musicians more so than maybe other, well, I'm including singers when I say musicians, I hope you realize, um, uh, that we're, actually comfortable being at home a lot of the time and working on our craft and doing what we do, because that's what we do anyway. um, we miss the interaction and being out there with other musicians and singers and the public. Yes, we all miss that for sure, but it's no strange thing to spend all day at home practicing and writing and doing some business in between all that. That's what we do every day anyway. So I don't
Yeah.
know if I answered your question at all, but I think
You
that there are
did.
more introverts out there than we realize. It was interesting. I read a book not that long ago called Quiet. It's about the power of introverts, and it's how like society and our culture really rewards the extroverted personalities for being the quickest thinkers and the quickest spoken and the decisive folks in the world. But often it's the quieter, more thoughtful people that have the best answers because they sit with them and they're not the quickest to act. I'm not saying that because I'm more introvert. I'm just saying it opened my eyes to the fact that there's a lot of power in being quiet and observing and maybe not having the quickest answer of everybody around you, but also thinking things through. So I think there are places for everybody, for extroverts, for introverts. And it was a little bit, I guess, enlightening for me to see that, okay, there are other ways to be. It's okay to be that way. It's okay if you're not an extrovert, there's still a place for you in the world and things for you to accomplish and do and say.
Yeah. Well, it struck me yesterday when I was watching the John Lewis Memorial
Yeah.
that John Lewis was probably like that, actually.
Hmm.
Even though his actions were continually, I don't want to say extrovert, but put out there. He was constantly a doer
Yeah.
and he made things happen.
Oh
But
my God.
you
Yeah.
also got the feeling, that he was, as you just described, you know.
What a thoughtful, intelligent, humble, freaking courageous.
Yeah.
Have you seen the documentary uh, called Good Trouble about his life?
No.
Oh, watch it. It's so inspiring. And
Yeah.
the most inspiring thing is that through all that he's been through, gotten his butt kicked and beat with billy clubs and arrested 40
Yeah.
times before he was a member of Congress and 5 times since he became a congressman. He calls it getting into good trouble. He
Right.
still maintained hope and optimism through all that.
Yeah.
I mean, really remarkable.
Really beautiful. A friend of mine did the music for the Toni Morrison film documentary,
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Catherine Bostic. Yeah, and that also, she also is just great to listen to read,
Yeah,
to, but she led a life. I mean, it wasn't like she didn't say she was a black woman, and I got the same feeling from John Lewis.
yeah.
But she didn't do she didn't do her life in those terms. She
Mm,
did her life as a human being, and
yeah,
she achieved things that, maybe not only a black human being, but also a black woman, or
yeah,
even just a woman, high level publishing, editing jobs. I mean, top of the line.
yeah,
And just her point of view, very similar to John Lewis, just like
yeah.
this is a human being condition. And yes, we are black individuals, and yes, we have particular problems, but it's really a whole human being condition.
It would take all of us participating.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, very inspirational.
For sure.
Um, and Otmaro just arrived.
Hi,
Hi,
Admiral.
hi. He said you're a favorite of his.
Oh,
And
he's definitely a favorite of mine.
me too.
What an inspirational guy, musician.
So, again, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow I'm having on Eve Evans, who maybe Robert actually
Oh,
knows.
wonderful.
Yeah, she talk about a straight ahead human being. Um,
Give my
and
love to Eve Evans.
yeah, she's pianist, singer, very straightforward person, and she's been around here for a long
Funny
time.
and funny.
Oh God, I was looking for pictures of her, and there are some funny pictures that just really show who she is. It's really cute.
She's beautiful human. Beautiful.
Yeah. And then Sunday, Alexis Cole, who has this new project called jazzvoice.com, which has about 10 or less high quality singers teaching online. And that's pretty cool. And next week, we're going to get into John Monagan and Terry Roiger from New York, and Clayton Cameron, great drummer. Steve
Beautiful.
Cardenas. Do you remember Steve Cardenas?
No.
Guitar player. He used
Okay.
to live here. He lives in New York. And yeah, we're just going on. We have a bunch of people coming. Dina DeRose, Michael Abene, Corey Allen, Kim Richmond,
Wow.
even Diane Shore. She's coming as well.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Thanks for what
So,
you're doing, Kathy.
oh, thank you, Robert. Have a really great day.
You too. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
I loved hanging out with you. Say hello to your significant other.
I will. Love hanging with you too. Have a great day.